We're getting into a money conversation this hour, and we are saying welcome to all our audiences on our streaming platforms, YouTube, Facebook, X, and TikTok, and our audiences on KTN. Thank you for being here this morning, and also across Radio Garden and all our other radio platforms into Kenya's biggest conversation for this hour. Our guest is here and saying a good big morning and a welcome to the hot seat. Isaac Njuguna is the CEO of Zimele Asset Management. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
You're in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning.
Okay.
It's cold outside, but let's see how we can warm things up here a little bit. And we'll welcome you in a pure Situation Room style.
Thank you.
CT is a man with many visas. He goes around the continent and he picks up proverbs from different countries every week. It's got to be quite some time travel, isn't it?
Yes.
So he's got a proverb this, and he'll give us that proverb, and then you can tell us what it means to you, how would interpret it. Mm-hmm. Is that all right?
Fine, thank you.
Okay.
Hot water. No, first of all, the proverbs for this week come from the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire. We have been looking, last week we were in a country that is similar to the one we're looking at this week because they all border the ocean. If you're on this continent, it's either the Atlantic Ocean or it is the Indian Ocean. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the country or the Republic of Côte d'Ivoire, formerly known as the Ivory Coast. When you have a country that had ivory, it means it had elephants. Mm. So one wonders whether those elephants still exist in the large numbers that they once did. Hot water does not burn the house. Hot water does not burn the house. That's the proverb. Now, I'd like you to tell me what you think it means to you. Your interpretation of it.
Very, very deep. I think it's probably just to say that hot water is not destructive as such, because if it were, it would burn down the house, given that it's hot. But it doesn't, because it's what it's used for, I guess. Yeah, so it's not so much about the heat, it's about what the use that it's put to.
So what would that mean, do you think, if you were to apply it?
Well, if I was to look at it in terms of my industry or my profession, if I was to think about the same analogy using money, money is what you make it out. Money can get you to where you want to go. Money can help you achieve your goals, but money can also get you into trouble, as you're well aware. I think there's been this conversation going on for quite a while about the country's indebtedness and how that has caused us to get into an austerity mode, raising taxes, cutting spending, and that kind of thing. Now, at the individual level, it's not any different. If you don't manage money, money is going to manage you. And in most cases, it is not a very good manager. Money likes a master. So if you're going to be the servant of money, you're going to live a very difficult life. So in other words, money is how you manage it. It can give you a comfortable life, which is what my industry seeks to achieve, or money can make you a slave. As you are aware, debt simply means enslavement. Enslavement to money. So the choice is yours. So hot water, money, same difference.
Wow.
You put it very well.
My goodness, how's that for landing a plane this morning? Love to hear it. So then how we can just jump right into it, because I think you've just, paved a very good path for the conversation that we'll be having today. I mean, though we are looking specifically around, it just is able to open up. We're looking specifically at unit trusts and bills and bonds, but then we're also looking at practical investment choices for Kenyans. Let's start from the beginning, though. Tell us a little bit about Zimele and how you're established, what you do.
Zimele Asset Management has been around for more than 26 years. Our main goal or our main mission is actually to empower individuals from all walks of life to achieve their goals in life. And we help them to achieve these goals through saving and investment solutions. So name any goal that you have, because by and large, given who we are, we have aspirations. The minute you get to a certain age, assuming the working age, you have certain aspirations. You want to do things with your life. You want to grow personally. You want to buy things that will, help you make life better. So that's where we come in. So we help you manage your finances through saving and investment to get you to this destination, which is your goals. Yeah, and we do that through unit trusts, which are really a coming together of like-minded individuals where they put their money together. The money is invested collectively in various assets, and the gains go back to the individual, and they use those gains to be able then to achieve their goals in life. So if you will, the unit trust is like a vehicle. The goals are the destination. So the unit trust is a destination to get you to your goal.
Okay.
Sorry, the unit trust is a vehicle to get you to your destination.
Your destination.
Absolutely. So that's how we come in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's just break it apart and let's just make it for us to really understand, to be practical here, because unit trust. I mean, it sounds so bougie, and you should think I have a couple. Can you see I have a couple of unit trusts put away somewhere? You see, this is the thing. For us to really understand what is a unit, because we're going to build bonds as well. What is a unit trust really? I'm taking 20,000 shillings. Am I essentially putting it in a trust? Is it going to gain interest? And then later on, will I be achieving a profit to put me somewhere? Open it up for us to understand what exactly it is.
I think if it was to break it down, as you've requested, it's not really complicated. The name is a bit intimidating, unit trust. Reason being, they have not been around for long. I would say we are like the new kid on the block as far as financial services are concerned. Banks have been around forever. Insurance companies have been around forever. SACCOs also have been around for quite a while. You've even had land buying companies, which have been around for a long time. Unit trusts, on the other hand, are just slightly over 21 years old. We have been around for longer than that because we were existing in a different structure. But if you think about the problem, what problem are these entities seeking to solve? Because business is all about problem solving. So the problem here is, and I'll give you an analogy again in the methodology of Proverbs. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. So going alone, or if you want to go fast, that's how you go and try and put together all sorts of investments that you can come across. So given how much money you have, so you can go and buy treasury bills, you can buy treasury bonds, you can go and buy a piece of land for speculative purposes, you can even get into business ventures and so on and so forth. Now, whether that succeeds or not is entirely a different matter. But in usual terms, if you're going to be watching your money and you still have something that keeps you occupied full-time, meaning your job, then perhaps something is going to give. And that's why, for instance, you'll find if you're going to run a business part-time and there's somebody else who's running it full-time, chances are the person who's running it full-time is going to have better results. In other words, they're going to have more success than you. Now, that's where we come in. So in the unit trust setting, you give us your money. And so many other people give us your money. And I would like to emphasize here, we are not talking about a lot of money. At Zimele, for instance, 100 bob gets you started. And that 100 bob is just indicative. Technically, we really don't have a minimum balance. We have people saving 20 shillings. We have people saving 50 shillings. So it's really according to your person. That's why we say it's practical and should be for every individual. As long as you have an income, we believe you have an income, you have goals, you have aspirations, you need to save money, we are there for you.
Okay.
So that's where we come in. So we take this money, 20 bob, 100 bob, 1 million shillings, 100 million shillings, depending on the individual, put it together in one pool, and then invest it collectively. Now, when we come to investing, primarily we invest that money in treasury bills and treasury bonds. Now, those are what you might have heard being called fixed income funds or money market funds. So what we simply do is we take that money and lend it to the government. And I can tell you right now as we speak, there's probably no other venture that is as profitable as lending money to the government. As they say, every problem, if you flip it, becomes an opportunity. The same government that you're saying is indebted, same government that you're saying is going through austerity, has to borrow. Now, who does it borrow from? Primarily, it has been borrowing from banks. But you can also lend money to the government. By joining a unit trust and putting money in a money market fund or a fixed income fund, you're in essence lending money to the government because some of your savings are going to be used to buy those bills and bonds.
Yep.
Now, what's the issue with bills and bonds? also comes to rate of return, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that your money is working for you. If your money is not working, then it means that it's going to lose value. Now, these bills and bonds, currently, we are looking at rates of interest rates from 15% going all the way to around 18%.
Can I just pause you for a second?
Please.
Unit trust, you explained. I have an understanding.
Yes.
What's a bill? What's a bond?
Okay. Let me go back to that.
Yes.
Now, a treasury bill, or let's just start from scratch. You remember earlier we said debt. Yeah?
Yep.
So when the government gets into debt, it is required to borrow. Yeah? Or sorry, when the government cannot meet its expenses, its budgetary obligations.
Right.
Because a government, unlike you and I, has the power to tax. Yeah? It can tax and it can borrow. But generally, all that is guided by a budget. So the budget is presented. So in that budget, estimates of spending are provided there. And then after looking at the estimates of spending, they come and say, this is how much revenue we can raise from taxes. But there's always a difference. In other words, the government always lives beyond its means. Now, that difference is what is called a deficit, budget deficit. And most of the ministers, cabinet secretaries' measures are geared towards closing that deficit. And that's where the borrowing comes in, because the borrowing is how the deficit is reduced. So how does what methods does this borrowing take? It can be domestic. Now, domestic borrowing is what is referred to as treasury bills and treasury bonds. These are simply, they're called instruments, financial instruments that the government sells to raise money from individuals, from banks, from financial institutions, to be able to bridge its budget deficit. Yeah. What's the difference between a bill and a bond? A treasury bill is a short-term borrowing instrument for the government. By short-term, we mean less than 1 year. So currently, as we speak, we have three kinds of treasury bills. We have one that matures after 3 months, we have one that matures after 6 months, and we have one that matures at just about a year, 364 days. And the longer the duration, the higher the rate of interest that it's supposed to give you. The 1 year maturity comes in at around 16%. So if you're to put your money there, minimum amount 100,000 shillings, should get about 16% interest.
So you come back when you get 16,000 shillings?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's a treasury bill.
Yes.
Bill, short term. Bond, long term. So a treasury bond is how governments borrow long term. So a treasury bond will have a maturity of 2 years, and currently we have one that was issued quite a while back that has a maturity of 30 years. In some countries, you can even raise that maturity to even 50 years and beyond, based on how the confidence is in the markets. So that's the difference.
At treasury what percent? Bills, same percent?
No. Treasury bonds come in at a higher percentage because you're lending for a longer duration.
Okay.
So generally, the longer you're lending money, the higher the compensation you should be given. Therefore, the higher the rate of interest. Yes. Okay. So that's bills and bonds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where do you suggest, or where do you recommend that folks who have, some money to then invest should put their money?
Now, as I said earlier, in the same spirit of Proverbs, if you want to go alone, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. So here, if you really want to go fast, as in you want to go, then you go directly into these instruments. So put your money together. How much do you need? 100,000 shillings for treasury bills, 50,000 shillings minimum for treasury bonds. Now, you need to ask yourself, how many individuals have that kind of money on a regular basis? Treasury bills are sold on a weekly basis. So they have what they call auctions. And they are usually conducted by the Central Bank of Kenya. So in each auction, to participate, you need a minimum of 100,000 shillings as an individual. Treasury bonds, on the other hand, are usually sold on a monthly basis through an auction as well, through the Central Bank of Kenya. Central Bank of Kenya is the government's borrowing agent. For treasury bonds, you need a minimum of 50,000 shillings. Now, you need to ask yourself, would you be having this money lying around on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, waiting for you to put it into these instruments? Not forgetting that you have other needs, and not forgetting that the other dynamics at play. And that's where unit trusts come in, like now the Zimele unit trust. Now, with the unit trust, you really don't need to have that 50,000 shillings every month, or you don't need to have the 100,000 shillings every week. With whatever you have, let's call it even 100 shillings, 1,000 shillings, whatever your pocket can spare, You come and give us that money. We, in turn, pull it together with money from other people, go and buy the same bill that is being sold for 100,000 shillings or the bond for 50,000 shillings. But here's the catch. The interest that you earn from there, we give that to you, less a fee. Okay. So you're actually better off, because anytime you have money, it doesn't have to be 50,000 shillings. It doesn't have to be 100,000. Whatever amount you have, that 100 shillings, that 1,000 shillings, that 10,000, depending on your pass, bring it to us at whatever interval. We will put it into those instruments and you will earn that interest. And the catch is here. If you need the money, what happens? Now, in the case of buying directly, this going, if you want to go walk fast, you go alone. So if you go directly and buy these bills and bonds, you will have to hold them until maturity for a treasury bill, because there's no what they call a secondary market where you can go and sell the treasury bill before it has matured to get you back your money. You have to wait it out. Waiting it out means waiting for either 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. Now the problem is, life, emergencies happen.
Yes.
Needs sometimes come calling without any notice. So you need a ready source of funds, or rather where your money is should be a place also where you can easily get it back. And that's where we come in. So in as much as you are putting this money aside, if you need your money, same day you will get your money.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, can you have concurrent bonds and bills? Because you said the central bank, for example, is selling these bonds, is selling the bills weekly and is selling bonds monthly. So can you, as an individual, or if you come together with several people, say, okay, well, we've got 100,000 shillings this month, or we've got it this week. Can we come together as 10 people who have some 10,000, put it in the weekly bill, come next week, get another bill, come next week, get another one? Can Zimele now say, okay, guys, we see that maybe you have some money coming in. So can you have concurrent bills? And can you have concurrent bonds? Because I would imagine that what this does is that the profits, just take the 16,000 shillings, for example, could be coming to you regularly. Is that something that you could do?
Yeah, you could do that.
I feel a butt coming on.
But now, if you're to do that outside this unit trust structure, there are certain dynamics that you'd have to consider. So, for instance, if you're coming together with a group of people, that would essentially be a chama, isn't it? Now, how much money can you raise through this chama to be able to participate effectively? Now, as it is, we're handling chamas as well. We have something called the Zimele Chama Manager. Same setup. If you have a chama, join, put your money there, earns in the same way. But now, here's what I was trying to say. Now, the challenge here is how do you then do the administration to determine so and so's share is this, because it's likely that people will be contributing in different amounts. So somebody has to keep tabs of that. And unfortunately, given that we are likely to be full-time engaged in something else, record keeping kind of falls behind, and you have issues. Other people are not, coming through their contributions that they should, and then all of you start falling behind. Now, if you to think about it, the unit trust is like a very big chama, but with a very, very strong governance structure. And what do I mean by that? Perhaps this is where the strength of the unit trust comes in. You remember, it is how to get far, because it means you can expect to be saving and investing in a unit trust for as long as you're around, because the governance structure is what will ensure that this entity will continue existing into the future. And what do I mean by the governance structure? According to the regulator, in this case the Capital Markets Authority, every unit trust has to conform to a particular structure. One, it needs to have a trustee. The trustee is simply like a board of directors who oversee the overall running of the unit trust and safeguard the interest of the members. So any issue affecting the members, the trustee is supposed to jump in and ensure that everything is sorted out. They're also supposed to ensure that money is being invested in the right places according to the guidelines and rules and so forth. Next to the trustee, you have another person there called the fund manager. The fund manager or investment manager is simply the person who is charged with directing where this money needs to go. So once the money has come together in that one pot, they are the ones who say so much percent should go to treasury bills this week, so much percent should go to treasury bonds, so much percent should go to... There are so many other investments that they're also allowed to invest in. And then there's a third entity there called a custodian. And as the name suggests, a custodian is a safekeeper of the assets of the unit trust. So all the monies that are collected from the members and all the investments that are made by the unit trust are held in custody by the custodian, who is required to be a commercial bank for obvious reasons. So with that structure, checks and balances, and you have a regulator at the top, Capital Markets Authority, you have a very, very solid structure where as long as you've put in your money, you're sure to get what you're looking for. In other words, your needs or your goals will be met. The money will be invested in treasury bonds, treasury bills. You will get your interest, and you will be able to achieve your goals.
Okay.
Outside that structure, all sorts of things can go wrong. Money can be easily diverted into other places, and you've had those things. Yeah, so those ones are less likely to happen under the unit trust structure.
Do SACCOs do the same thing that you do in terms of how they invest their money?
They do the same thing with only one caveat, that they lend money as well. So SACCOs will collect money from deposits, and primarily they are lending. They are lenders, really. So they will lend that money to their members. Now, the only challenge there is whenever there's that lending component, especially to individuals, there's always the default, the issue of default. So 100 shillings invested, or rather 100 shillings in loans, never comes back in full. And as you're talking about it right now, I'm sure you've seen it in the financial pages. In the banking, if you were to take the same analogy to the banking sector, of the total loans that they've created, 16% are not performing. What does this mean? Money that has been lent to individuals, money that has been lent to companies they've not been able to recover this money for various reasons. Some of these companies might have gone under. Some of these individuals might have lost their jobs. They're not able to pay back their loans and so forth. So the SACCO setting presents that risk that the money might not come back in full. But in the unit trust structure, we are not allowed to lend by law. So all the money we collect from you can only go to investment. The only lending we do is to the government through those instruments, treasury bills, treasury bonds. And these are safeguarded securities. These are guaranteed securities issued by a sovereign or a government. So chances of government defaulting are very, very low. Why? Because unlike you and I, governments have the power to tax. We don't. So if there's a bill maturing, all they need to do is just either they use the money from taxes, or they're even allowed to take more loans to pay old loans. Now, nobody has that kind of flexibility. So for that reason, it's considered safe.
Okay.
What instruments does one get when one puts their 1 shilling, 2 shillings, 10, 20, 30, 100 with you?
Essentially, you open an account.
So I'm an account holder.
So you open an account in the Zimele Unit Trust Fixed Income Fund,
Okay.
or the Zimele Savings Plan, as we call it. So that 100 shillings is simply a deposit or an item in your account. Every month, there's interest that's checking in. So you'll be able to see how much interest you're earning. If you have another 100 shillings the following month, put it there. You'll see it there in the statement. In the other month, the 200 shillings qualifies for interest, and it continues growing.
So beyond just accumulating the interest, I cannot use this money to safeguard or to guarantee me to borrow.
You can.
How?
You can actually go to a bank, tell them, this is how much money I'm holding at this unit trust, and I need to get a loan of this much. So this would actually be like your security.
Isaac Njuguna, who is the CEO of Zimele Asset Management, is in the studio with us this morning, and we're talking about essentially what you can do with your money. Jesse?
Well, I was looking for keywords, and I'll come in as a, how should I put it, Gen Z enthusiast. Someone who's just joining the job market, might not have too much money to invest. And you mentioned there are low entry requirements. As little as 100 Kenya shillings, you can get going. That's very important. Enhanced returns, you said the percentage of interest is. Does it vary? If I decide to invest using Zimele and someone else goes with an insurance company, say Britam, does the interest rate vary? So I should make an informed point of view. I should make an informed decision when picking which particular asset management company to go with. Kindly tell us that. Equally, is it ideal for long or short-term investments when you're talking about unit trust? because we're dealing with a generation that wants, how do I put it, instant gratification. They might look to invest and get money as fast as possible. So is this a long-term or short-term investment? And equally, I'll have to poke holes into the credibility of government paying back. There are those who might look as, this is similar to government not repaying pending bills. You can, you might be looking at a, pyramid scheme or something. So for those who are of little faith, how do you give them an assurance that despite the poor repayment record by government in other sectors, when you come to unit trust and invest in perhaps bonds or treasury bills, you are assured of your return? Yes.
Okay, thank you for those questions. Number one, I would like to inform you that a very interesting dynamic so far. The Gen Zs are actually majority of our members. Interesting. We serve a whole spectrum of individuals, from students all the way to people in retirement. So we see ourselves as being involved in this whole spectrum. But coming back to your question, one choice of unit trust. One, of course, is the entry level. So like I mentioned, the Zimele is at 100 bob. And technically, we can even drop you to 20 bob or whatever your wallet can afford. Now, others will vary. There are some who will tell you minimum is 10,000 shillings. Others will even tell you their minimum is 1,000,000 shillings. So I guess it depends with how much you feel you can set aside given that minimum. Now, as far as the returns are concerned, first thing, of course, is that these instruments that we invest in, treasury bills and treasury bonds, the interest will always vary from time to time based on the government borrowing requirements. So currently, we're in a high interest rate environment. When you talk about interest rates in the range of 16%, going all the way to 18%, that's not a normal environment. And this has been playing out not just in Kenya, but globally. And we can even trace its roots to America. So whatever happens in America has bearings here. So America raised its rates to try and control the inflation, and that worked its way all the way here. So rates here also went up. But generally, it's not usually the norm. So in most cases, like if you go back about 2 or 3 years, these same T-bills, treasury bonds that you're talking about and treasury bills were below 10%. And because of that, lending rates also on banks and so forth were also lower than where they are. So they all have a bearing. But from time to time, they'll normally go up and they'll go down. So that will come to you. So depending on what we get in the market, that is essentially what we will pay you. Now, but then again, you are not likely to see a very, very big difference from one provider to another. Why is that? Because we are all going to the same source. So if we're all going to the same source, we are buying the same bills this week, we are buying the same treasury bonds and so on, then it is not likely that anybody can tell you that they have a considerable advantage over the other. So for instance, if I tell you that, say, we're able to give you, say, 14% after everything has been deducted. Now, when somebody comes and tells you they're able to give you 20%, and you know for sure that there's no instrument in the market currently that can give you 20%, then you know there's something going on. And usually in such cases, risk comes in. So the higher the return that is being quoted, outside what would be considered to be the average, just know that you're also embracing a higher level of risk. And what risk means is that it increases then your likelihood of getting into situations that you probably want to avoid. Now, as far as government stability is concerned on these instruments, I would like to assure you that treasury bills and treasury bonds are totally different from pending bills. These are not obligations that the government pays when they feel like, because that's the unfortunate bit with the monies owed to suppliers. The government will take money, will contract you, and then when it comes to payment, they tell you, okay, wait, we have so many things we are trying to sort out. Give us time because we so and so paid us, or rather so and so built this road like 5 years ago, and we are still trying to sort them out. And I think right now the figure is trending to over 800 billion shillings. Okay, but for treasury bills and treasury bonds, these ones are safeguarded by law. Government is required to pay. So come rain, come shine, they must pay that debt. So if they don't, there are serious obligations here, or there are serious ramifications, because by and large, the entire financial services industry is built on these instruments of lending to the government, so to speak.
Essentially, you're saying it's built on trust.
It is built on trust.
Yes.
So if the government reneges on payment of treasury bills and treasury bonds, I can assure you, by the time the government is totally defaulting on those, you don't have an economy. You do not have an economy. Yeah. And in cases where that has happened, or rather, let me just put it differently, in the case where you have a functioning democratic state, it is not likely to have a default on domestic debt.
And it hasn't ever happened.
Let me make that qualification.
Okay.
There are two categories of government debt. There's domestic debt and there's external debt or foreign debt.
Yes.
Now, domestic debt is actually like a merry-go-round. Government issues new debt to pay old debt. So that one, you can rest assured, chances of defaulting are close to zero.
Okay.
Why? Because also the government is issuing in its own currency. It is the one that creates the currency, and it is the one that is borrowing, and it is the one that has the power to tax. So for it to go bust to the point where it is unable to pay the same debt that it is creating, it's a very, very unlikely situation.
Okay.
Problems always check in on the external debt. Now, the external debt arises, of course, where the government feels, after looking at its numbers and still trying to plug in that budget deficit, decides to go offshore to borrow in dollars, to borrow in euros, to borrow in other currencies. You remember the euro bonds, That's how the external debt comes in. But the external debt can take different forms. The government can choose to go to private lenders, which is where the Eurobond was coming in. Now, the danger in that is that you're borrowing at commercial terms. You're borrowing at very expensive terms. The government can also choose to borrow from other sources, like other countries, or what are called multilateral institutions, like, for instance, the IMF and the World Bank. And incidentally, those are the largest holders of our external debt. So the external debt component is where the risk comes in. How does the risk comes in? Exchange rates. So if there's a problem with the exchange rate, as we saw recently, it might come to a point where the government feels this external debt is becoming a problem. Yeah. And they might have to look for ways of rearranging that debt so that they can continue paying. Kenya has been lucky in that effect because Kenya is a very, very strong economy in the region and in Africa in general. Unfortunately, other countries, as you're aware, have not fared very well within Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and have actually defaulted on their external debt obligations. So coming back to you, as long as the dynamics are the way they are, you can rest assured that whatever money you put into a unit trust and that money is invested in treasury bills and bonds, the risk of default is very low.
So briefly, long-term or short-term investments, is it ideal?
It can be for both. It can be for both. So whatever goal you have, we would really like to look at it from the personal finance perspective. You have these goals. I want to buy a new phone. I want to buy a new car. I want to plan for my wedding. I want to go for that holiday. I want to buy a plot so that I can build a house. I want to start planning for my retirement. I want to put my kids through high school or university. You can use a unit trust to get you there. The only thing you need is to free up money on a regular basis to be able to do so. And that's where the budget comes in. Because sometimes people say, no, I don't have money. Where do I get money to save in this tough economy? Reality is, times have never been easy. For as long as man has been around, the situation on money is always tight. So if you don't arrange your affairs through a budget, look at where expenses are going, look at your income, and then look at the difference. If you have a surplus, you're okay. Take that money, save and invest it, and see how you can achieve your goals. If you're running into a deficit, go back to your expenses. Analyze them. Where are you going wrong? Because there are two things, wants and needs. Remove your wants. And I can assure you, once you've removed your wants and you're left with the needs, chances are you'll end up with a surplus that you can set aside to achieve your goals.
Okay. Look at the space in which we currently operate in, where everybody has a side hustle, Isaac. And with that side hustle, more often than not, you're seeing some kind of shilling coming in every day or every 2 days or every week kind of thing. And you can actually see the shillings and cents check into your phone, or, somebody's paying you. What would be the difference between this, and how would you say opt for unit trusts, opt for taking your money and putting it somewhere where you can watch it grow. Whereas you enter into a side hustle, real estate, buying or whatever, and that you can actually see somebody's paying you something every month. What would be the difference, and how would you then be able to navigate that?
There's really not much difference. It's all the same thing. The side hustle, you're looking at making a profit. So, and also at your personal level, say the employment income, you're looking at maximizing that income so that you end up with a surplus. So in all cases, we are looking at the pursuit of a surplus. But the question is, once that surplus is realized, so for instance, you've done your side hustle, somebody else has a business that's doing very well, they've managed to make a profit and they've paid themselves dividends. What do you do then? That's where we come in.
What you do with the surplus?
What you do with the surplus is where we come in.
Okay.
So, and that's what I was saying, the budget at the individual level will be your tool, will be your guide to generating that surplus. And it's very easy. These days, there are apps that can help you do that. And just to challenge the audience, just take your M-Pesa statement. These days, I believe, there's almost no item that you can buy that you would not be able to use, mobile money. So take your take your M-Pesa statement and just go through it, the expenses, download it and go through it in detail, each and every item. I am telling you, you will start knowing the kind of person you are, because you'll see things that are not making sense.
Just
and
from the
that
charges?
is where, yes, and that is where your money has been going. You go somewhere, you see new things, you see nice shoes. Let me get those. You go somewhere else, you see people are telling, there's this happening, here. But see, before you know it, there's no money left. And then you're wondering, how is it? Every month, money comes to me, but I have nothing left at the end of the month. Therefore, I can't save, I can't invest, I can't grow. No, you need to look at your expenses. If you look at your expenses, and we always say there's no such thing as a lot of money and there's no such thing as little money. You might find somebody with a very, very modest income getting ahead by far than somebody with a number with very many digits after it. Money management is the key, and the budget is the starting point. That's what we always insist. Go through your expenses, go through them with a tooth comb. Are you living within your means? That's a principal guide. Try and live within your means. And living within your means also has another connotation. Please try and stop impressing people. If you can avoid impressing people, you are going to live a very comfortable life. Because by and large, at the end of it, what we'd like to see ourselves doing is helping you achieve a better life experience through managing your money. Why? Because money is usually the source of stress. It can be the source of stress. It can be the source of comfort.
Or lack of it.
Or lack of it.
Yeah.
So we say, if you don't manage your money well, if you don't watch out for these things, you don't do your budget, you don't watch your expenses, you're busy trying to please everybody, you're getting, you're living outside your means, meaning you're getting into debt, you will always be the slave of money. And you will work your entire life and you'll have nothing to show for it. So manage your money. Manage your money using a budget. Manage your money living within your means. Try as much as possible to keep your ego in check. Don't try and impress others. It doesn't get you anywhere. And of course, try as much as possible, whatever surplus you generate, save and invest that money in the right places. And also, make sure your money is protected against inflation. Okay. What is inflation? Inflation is an enemy of money. If your money is lying idle, if your money is not growing at an appropriate rate, higher than inflation, inflation comes and takes it out.
Okay, again, I'm going to ask you to break it down, because if you have some extra cash, and you want to put it under your mattress like CT, essentially saying that this boogeyman called inflation could come and take it away. How exactly does this work? Because again, it's one of those words. It's like unit trust. When we hear inflation and we're like, okay, so what is this thing? And they tell us it's 7% or it's 4% or in some countries it's 46%. What does it mean? And how then does it affect money that you put under your mattress essentially?
In simple terms, inflation is actually an affliction of money. Money is like an organism, if you have to think about it that way, and it therefore is prone to this infection called inflation. And the only way, now, what does inflation do? Or simply, what is inflation? Inflation simply means an increase in the general level of prices of goods and services. So for instance, today, you go to the shop, and that's how you know inflation. As you said, it sounds very abstract. Wow, what is it? Currently, we are saying inflation is what? 4.4%. What does that even mean? It might not mean a lot. You will not see it at all. But believe me, you are going to feel it. How do you feel it? Have you ever gone to the supermarket or to your retail shop, and done your shopping, the usual shopping you do,
Yeah.
you haven't added a single item, and then you realize, wait a minute, where has all that money disappeared to? Yeah, there's a time you could say 1,000 shillings could fill a trolley.
Yeah.
Couple of years ago, isn't it? Now these days, if you walked in with a 1,000 bob, I can assure you,
You don't
even
even-
that
you don't
basket,
even need a carrier bag.
even that basket, you
need
may
that.
you
Hold
may
it in
probably
one
carry a
hand.
few things in your hands, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's inflation for you, yeah?
Yeah.
That's how inflation manifests for you. So how do you protect yourself against inflation? Make sure at all times your money is working. Money doesn't like being idle. Money has to grow at a rate that is higher than inflation. Now, automatically, when you put it into a unit trust like the Zimele savings plan, because we are paying you a return, a rate of interest that is always higher than the rate of inflation, your money will always be protected against inflation. You don't have to worry about that. However, if you're putting your money in a place where it is earning 0% in interest, or the proverbial mattress account, or where it is earning a rate of interest that is less than inflation, which is 4%, you are going to be in trouble. Why? The value of your money will be eroded constantly over time.
You know, when you talk about inflation, it's like this very heinous animal that can actually consume you while you're asleep. There's always the question of what causes it.
Inflation is a combination of very many factors. One, if you look at our situation, for instance, we have two main culprits. One is food prices. And in food prices, if you're to break it down, because our agriculture is dependent on rain, it's a do or die situation.
Depending on water or on rain?
On water, let's say water. And in turn, that water is fed with rain. So if it fails to rain, or if it rains and the rainfall is not sufficient, we have problems. Food production suffers, and therefore prices of veggies, prices of cereals, everything goes up. So that's food inflation. And unfortunately, food inflation has a very, very high component in our everyday budget. Second item also that makes inflation to be a bother is energy prices. Now, energy prices checks in different ways, but the main culprit is really fuel. Why? Because we do not have our own fuel here. Our oil, petroleum, we have to import it. It is probably one of the largest import components, about a quarter or so of our total import bill. So because we are dependent on international prices, for which we have no control over, every time international fuel prices spike, you can expect local prices also to spike in time. And that causes prices to go up. Why? Because it captures everything, transport, production, everything. So again, feeds into the inflation cycle, causing again these prices of goods and services to go up. So those are the two notorious sources of inflation: food, which is really weather driven, and energy. So in other words, if you're to think about it from another perspective, if we were to move our agriculture to irrigation driven, so therefore we are not waiting for it to rain, we would tame food inflation. On the outside, if you were to move to something else that is, or rather reduce our dependence on fuel or petroleum, for instance, this move towards electric vehicles or electric engines, that would considerably reduce our dependence on international fuel prices. And those ones are subject to geopolitics. So for instance, like at any point in time, even right now as we speak, there's always somebody poking somebody else's eye, and you can almost bet that is going to cause an escalation that is going to cause fuel prices to go up, that is going to find us here, and we're not even in any way involved in that confrontation. So those are the two notorious sources. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want to ask the question. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just difference between money market fund and FIF, and equally, when in terms of the withdrawal process, when I invest in unit trust, is there ease in getting my money, in accessing funds? How long does it take to withdraw the initial sum?
Good question. Money market fund. Now, money market fund, by regulation, because again, we are regulated, a money market fund is only allowed to invest in investments with a maturity of less than a year and a half.
Okay.
So 18 months. So that's a restriction. They cannot invest in anything or in any money interest-bearing securities that have a maturity of longer than a year and a half.
Okay.
So means they are restricted to treasury bills. There's also what is called commercial paper and so forth. But it has to have a maturity of 18 months or below, a year and a half. Okay. Fixed income funds, on the other side, do not have a restriction in terms of what they can invest in on these instruments. So they can invest in both short-term, that's a treasury bills, and they can also go long-term treasury bonds. So which means if you're to look at that setup, you'd actually expect, in a normal situation, fixed income funds to give you a higher return than money market funds consistently over time.
Okay.
Because generally, assuming these rates stabilize, they come down from where they are, or things normalize, short-term rates will always be lower than long-term rates. So if this money market fund is restricted to investing in short-term rates, it cannot have higher rates than this fixed income fund, which is allowed to invest for as long a duration as is available in the market.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do I get my money?
With Zimele, same day.
Oh, same day.
If you need your money, we can either pay you using M-Pesa, or we can transfer the money to your bank through a transfer.
Do you lose anything though?
No. We don't charge anything on withdrawal. The same way you give us your money is the same way we'll give you back your money. And we want to do that in a convenient manner as possible.
So how do you make your money?
We charge a fee. Yeah, so we're allowed to collect a fee, which is called a management fee. And that's 2% of the overall pool that we're investing. Yeah.
It's very good, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and here's the benefit of that. Even if interest rates were to go up to 100%, we are not allowed to increase our charge of 2%. It is fixed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, so it's 2% of what you're putting in that you charge, or just
2% of the return, if you to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So for instance, if the bond is giving you 18%, we knock off our 2%, we give you your 16%.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So where we're coming from here is just looking at that there are options. And I just want to go back to that issue that you talked about, whether it's your 20 shillings or your 50 shillings or your 100 shillings. Is there room for everybody? That I may not necessarily have extra, but I might have, like you said, I sell tomatoes and I have the hustle every day and I make a profit of 150 shillings every day. I can still take that 150 shillings, use the surplus that I get to grow that money even further. Just the last explainer on that.
At Zimele, we see that every day. We have a group of people, the so-called, informal sector. Yeah. They get their money on a daily basis. So the person and the business are more or less the same. So boda rider, your mama mboga, somebody has a kiosk, somebody is running a stall in town and so forth. So as they get this money, instead of keeping that money in their mobile wallet, which is very, very risky, because you'll always find something to do with it, they always put it aside. And the good thing about that is they know the money is growing.
Yes.
So they only access it when they need it.
Okay.
So it actually also helps them to manage their cash requirements. So it is very, very doable.
And it works.
Yeah, and it works. It is working.
Fantastic.
Yes.
An enlightening conversation this morning of what you can actually do with little, what you can do with much to actually weather these times that we are in and to actually see things grow. Isaac Njuguna, the CEO of Zimele Asset Management, has been our guest this hour. Thank you for that insightful conversation and looking forward to such in the future. Asante Sana.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.